Welcome to the Shining Light Press podcast. I'm your host, founder and editor-in-chief of Shining Light Press, Freddie Lopez. And today we have a very special guest here with us today. He is a former National Guard Brigadier General and a financier from Albuquerque, New Mexico, who is running for governor of New Mexico. Greg, welcome to the show, and how are you today?
I'm doing well, Freddie. Thank you for having me on. It's kind of you.
No problem. So let's start things off. Who is Greg Zanetti, and why have you decided to run for governor of New Mexico?
I'll give you the 2-minute elevator speech. I was raised here in New Mexico. I went to Valley High School, Freddie. From Valley, I went to West Point. I graduated from there in 1980 and served on active duty, mostly in Europe during the Cold War days. The Army was very kind to me. They paid for my master's degree in business from Boston University. My wife and I, we've been married 41 years now, but we came back to Albuquerque. And Freddie, I started a business. I started managing money. But the Army said to me, "Hey, Zanetti, you owe us some time for the master's degree. So tell you what, if you'll give us 4 years, I forget, in the National Guard or reserves, we'll call it square." So I joined the Guard. And so during the week, I built a business, had employees, got active in the party. I chaired the Republican Party in Bernalillo County twice. I was head of Right to Work. I was on the Right to Life committee for, 20 years, headed term limits, was on KKOB radio, which was the Rush Limbaugh station here forever. And I was on KOB TV, the NBC affiliate, on morning news with Monica Armenta and Steve Stucker for about a decade. So kind of in Albuquerque, people knew me, kind of the pillar of the community kind of guy. So built a business, and then on the weekends, I put on the uniform. And so I made rank. By 2005, I was General Zanetti and in command of the brigade. And in 2007, we got deployed to Guantanamo Bay. So Freddie, my claim to fame is I was the deputy commander and then the commanding general at Gitmo. So this is back when President Bush was in, but we were starting the transition to President Obama. I can't tell you how much I learned about politics at Guantanamo Bay. Republicans, Democrats, CNN, MSNBC, the Washington Post, the Miami Herald, all these human rights groups. For a boy from New Mexico, this was an eye-opener for me, I'll tell you. And this is how it works? So what I say is, if you're looking for a governor who understands complex bureaucracies and how they can either work for you or against you, I'd ask you to look at the Zanetti for Governor campaign. And by the way, that's our website, Zanetti for Governor. So when I got back from Gitmo, Freddie, I didn't have a job. I had to sell my business for the deployment. You can't take care of clients from Cuba. So my wife was getting a little bit nervous. "All right, honey, what are we going to do here?" And that's when I got a call from a high school friend, another Valley Viking. Freddie, he had become Bill Gates's money manager, the guy. And he said, "Greg, we've been following you for a long time. You're pretty good at what you do. We want you to come up here to Seattle and manage assets for Bill." Now, this was 2009. All the stuff we know about Mr. Gates now, we didn't know that then. And just so you know, I'm not a big fan of what he's doing. In fact, not at all. With that said, my confession, I still use Microsoft products. I still use Word. But anyway, I can't tell you how much I learned about managing billions and how it worked. And the stuff I thought I knew, Freddie, a lot of stuff I knew was true, but a lot of it wasn't. So if you are looking for a governor who understands how billions move and how they take advantage of our permanent funds, how Wall Street can take advantage of the retirement funds here, and you think you might want to have a governor who understands that stuff, I'd ask you to look at the Zanetti for Governor campaign. So with that, you asked me why I'm running. Freddie, I believe all this money printing is going to end badly. And when it ends badly, historically at least, it spills out into the streets. We have rising crime, rising civil unrest, rising social unrest. All the stuff you're seeing right now because when people get strapped for money, they act out. They do things they wouldn't normally do. So as far as government's first role is public safety. You have to take care of your citizens. That's the general Zanetti part. I'm pretty good at this stuff. Meanwhile, on the other side, we're going to have a financial mess to clean up after MLG, because what she is doing now and the way she has wasted these billions, it's masking the poverty that's occurring beneath. You're going to need a governor who understands money. Well, those are my skill sets. So it's kind of a long monologue, but that's who I am, and that's why I'm running. I believe I'm the right guy at the right time.
Very good, very good. And I believe that is actually a perfect segue into the question I'm about to ask, because this is just breaking news. The Supreme Court of New Mexico had ruled against the governor and in favor of the legislature in a lawsuit that claimed Governor Lujan Grisham doesn't have the authority to spend federal relief dollars. And this has just occurred. This was actually a bipartisan lawsuit from Minority Leader Greg Baca and Senator Jacob Candelera. And you as a financier, you understand how to manage money. And
Right.
what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on just this recent news?
I mean, it was just typical of our governor. It was all this overreach, this taking a COVID emergency and consolidating power at the top. And so maybe we should start with the philosophical, and then we'll bring it down to, what's happening today. And by the way, the Supreme Court was absolutely right. It was too much power, in one person's hands. Foundationally, there are really two ways a society can organize. One way is big government, centralized control, top-down, authoritative governance. Think czars, kings, emperors, MLG. That's how she governs. There's another way to, by the way, most of the world works like that. There's another way though, and one that I think actually fits New Mexico's personality much better. And that's bottom up. It's strong communities, strong families, small businesses, charities, church, we would say neighbors, vecinos. That is a much healthier way to grow a state or to grow a society. The bigger government gets, the more it crushes community. And so in governance, the legal part of this, with big government, it always operates under contract. I'm going to fight for my thing, you're going to fight for your thing, we're going to duke it out, and we're going to have some lawyer draw it up, and whoever has the best lawyer wins. Well, that's top down. With big community, it's actually not contracts, it's covenants. I'm going to look you in the eye, Freddie. I'm going to shake your hand and say, I'm going to do this deal. You're going to do your part of the deal. But there really aren't usually lawyers involved. But there is a third party. It's typically a higher authority that, creator, the God, and whatever you want to say, looking down and judging between thee and me, are we keeping our deal? And so that's the big difference. Do you want big contract or do you want big covenant? Do you want big government or do you want big community? What MLG embraces is big government, authoritarian, top-down, dictatorial kind of things, which is why she went all the way to the Supreme Court to pull power even from her own party. Think about that. I want total control. And even the Democrats are finally saying, this isn't how it's supposed to work. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. We've got to stop this. So thank goodness for the Supreme Court today. I'm glad they did it.
Yes, I was genuinely surprised because the Supreme Court, at least at the state level here in New Mexico, has ruled generally on her favor. So it did surprise me, and I think many people here in New Mexico are thankful for that. And another segue into power of the governor is recently the Colorado governor, Jared Polis, when he was remarking on the cases skyrocketing here in New Mexico, he took a jab at Michelle Lujan Grisham saying, well, if you can look at our neighbor New Mexico, they have an indoor mask mandate and they have the same number of cases as we do, and we don't have a mask mandate. So My question to you is, when it comes to mandates, what is your thoughts on them? And do you believe that when it comes to personal health decisions, that is between the person, their personal physician, themselves,
Right.
what are your full thoughts on that?
Well, I wouldn't do mandates at all. I mean, the more, again, we're back to the community thing. More local control works better. But again, let's go to the philosophy of it, because if you understand how she thinks and the philosophy behind it, things clear up. And I'm going to tell you a Guantanamo Bay story that I think will resonate, and we'll bring it here to New Mexico. Freddie, when I was getting ready to leave, you're young, you won't remember this. President Obama's very first executive order was going to be, and was, close Guantanamo Bay. Okay, you're the president, you got elected, you have that authority. And so, I called up to the Department of Detainee Affairs at the Pentagon. Said, okay, we're closing the place. Who's in charge? Who's coordinating this? Freddie, no one had been assigned. Gitmo is what we call a joint task force. It was soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, Coast Guard, all of us together, along with, I can't tell you how many contractors and civilian employees, I mean, thousands. So I went over to see our Air Force guys. All right, fellas, we're shutting her down. You guys clearly will be flying these detainees somewhere. Where are you taking them? No one had been assigned. We had a State Department contingent at Gitmo, just down the hall. All right, you guys are in charge of this thing. Clearly, you've made arrangements for the detainees to go somewhere. Freddie, they didn't even know what I was talking about. This was my first experience with leadership by decree. I declare, I pronounce that we shall do this. And then the leader leaves the room. I mean, can you imagine running a business like this? Can you imagine saying we're going to close a branch office in Gallup? And then you announce the date and leave, and your staff looks around and go, well, who's doing what? How are we going to get rid of the property? How do we coordinate with the state? Anyway, all these things you would normally do. All right, let's spring forward to just a few months ago. What did you see in Afghanistan? You saw this awful collapse, and it was unnecessary. Granted, we had to leave Afghanistan. I understand that, but not like that, where we left billions in equipment behind, where we left all those people behind. How many thousands of people are dying now as a result of leadership by decree? It's what Biden did. I declare we shall be out of Afghanistan on August 31st. No coordination, no timetables, no responsibility given, no time, nothing was done the way we normally do it. This brings us to masks, your original question. How does MLG govern? By decree, by pronouncements. I declare restaurants can be at 25% occupancy. Well, why 25? Why not 24? Why not 31? Where are you coming up with this stuff? And same with the mask mandates. I pronounce everyone in the whole state indoors. Well, we all know it's not working. I mean, we all know it's stupid. When you walk into a restaurant, you wear it, and as soon as you sit down, it comes off, and everybody's looking around at each other. Why are we doing this? And meanwhile, state after state has said, this is stupid. We're not doing it anymore. But she's so married to her orthodoxy, to not admitting I've made a mistake. We shouldn't be doing this. She doubles down, like she did at the Supreme Court. I get to spend all the money. It's leadership by decree that you would see out of the Queen, the Empress, I don't know, the Tsar. It's crazy. So anyway, I'm the opposite of MLG. Just think of it that way.
Yes, and a lot of people here in New Mexico, many people are just simply tired because of her mandates, or basically, as you say, her decree. She's basically destroyed about 40%
right
for small businesses, and
right.
They're gone, and there's no longer coming back. And you have so many businesses that are struggling right now, and many people are just so distrustful of her, and many people do not like this current governor, and many people are running. And this is a perfect segue to another question. There's about almost a dozen candidates for governor, And my question to you is, what makes you unique amongst all of the candidates in this race?
Oh, it's the skill sets. I mean, if you look at the other gubernatorial candidates, Frey, you'd be pleased with them. Rebecca Dow has skill sets. When you hear her speak, she's generally talking about children and education and what we should do there. Mark Ronchetti has skill sets. So does Jay Block. So does Louis Sanchez. My skill sets are, I was a general, the public safety and the border issues. No one knows more about borders in this race than I do, I promise. I was stationed on the Czech border as a second lieutenant. I know all about the demilitarized zone in Korea. We met with the Cubans once a month on border issues. And I was on the New Mexico border back in the 2000s when President Bush called us up for the immigration crisis there. And everyone says, I'm going to deploy the National Guard to stop the border issue. Well, okay, I get that. But I'll tell you what, Freddie, if you were the governor of the state and you called in General Zanetti and you said, I want to deploy the Guard, I would say, yes, sir. And I would call everybody up, Freddie, all of them, because that's what generals do. You want as big a force as you can get. But guess what? This is going to be a state mission. We, the people of New Mexico, must pay for this. This isn't going to be a federal mission where Biden is going to be footing the bill for us to call up the Guard to close the border. What you're going to need to do, besides the I will deploy the National Guard, is say, okay, General, what units are we going to use? Which ones will integrate best with the Border Patrol, the sheriffs, the police, the local authorities? What do they need? We've got a constitutional issue to deal with, posse comitatus. We can't bankrupt the state because we've got a governor who doesn't know how to connect the cost of deploying the military with the mission. So that's one strength. The other strength I have, it's this money piece. We are going to have financial issues. I guarantee it. And you can't have good schools if you don't have money to pay for them. You can't have good roads unless you have money. You're going to need to have someone who understands money. I'm pretty good at that too. So those are the things that differentiate me. Otherwise, you're right. We're all the same. We're all pro-life. We're all pro-gun. We're all for less taxes. We're all for small business. I don't know, all that is equal. What skill sets do you have to actually change the state? That's what I believe sets me apart, but that's up to the voters to decide.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's another thing there too, because when it comes to here in New Mexico, I believe almost half of our budget is relied on oil and gas.
Right.
And the governor, she seems to just be a radical environmentalist, someone who just believes we need to get rid of oil, we need to get off gas, we need to get off this. Well, you're basically going to get rid of thousands of jobs, and you're basically going to bankrupt the state. And that money that we get from oil and gas, that goes to our schools.
Right.
That goes to many of our things and there. And it's and here's the thing, we all care about the environment. We all believe in the environment. We all believe that we should have clean water and clean air for the next generation, so on and so forth. And as governor, how do you balance those issues without going to the extreme on saying we need no oil and gas, we need none of this, or any side? What do you believe as there should be a balance to this particular issue?
Well, I mean, you just said it. There has to be balance to the particular issue. And I mean, a couple of things. Let's address the immediate. You may not have seen this study that PNM just put out last month that said, hey, look, we're not nearly where we thought we were going to be on green energy. In fact, we're only about a third of where we thought we would be. Meanwhile, Freddie, we're going to shut down that coal plant up there in Farmington and lose 1,600 jobs, and with it, anyway. What PNM is warning about is that by next summer, they have about a 5% cushion in their energy draw. So if we have either a hotter summer or a colder winter, we're looking at blackouts or brownouts, just like we saw in Texas, when that storm swept through. And so in some ways, our governor lives in a fantasy land that if I decree we shall be all green, it just magically happens. And now it's not happening. And PNM is saying, whoa, time out. I'm not sure this is going to work. So let's go back again to foundational. What she doesn't understand is the difference between money and wealth. So take off the general Zanetti hat. Let's put on financial advisor Zanetti hat. The rich people of the world don't think like you and I do, Freddie. They don't think in terms of money. They think in terms of wealth. And foundationally, there are two kinds of wealth in the world. There's wealth from the earth. I want you to think oil, gas, timber, copper, iron, oranges, soybeans, the stuff God made. I mean, cotton is cotton and it doesn't change much. But everything in the room where you're sitting in right now started from wealth from the earth. It all starts there. Anyway, by the way, is New Mexico rich in wealth from the earth? Oh my goodness, yes. We have oil, we have gas, we have aluminum, we have copper, we have uranium, we have 4 of the 17 rare earth elements. We have water, believe it or not. We should make that another topic. But the point is, we all know we have this great potential here. The technology has advanced dramatically. So it's not like the old days where you got to rip the ground asunder, and not fix it at the end. We can do it better than we used to. And we know we have this potential. Meanwhile, there's another kind of wealth. There's wealth from human hands. It's taking aluminum and making an airplane. Wealth to me. My cell phone is wealth to me. My computer, my car, I mean, all that stuff, the high-tech stuff. I don't know, it's wealth. Now, that's a moving target. Wealth from human hands used to be railroads. Well, then it was cars and radios, and we all know the progression, washers and dryers and microwave ovens, fax machines, and now here we are. Freddie, what's the new wealth from human hands that's coming? Oh, I don't know, micromachinery, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, quantum computing. Your generation is going to blow us away with your advances. Now, all those things that I just talked about, where were they born? In New Mexico, at the labs, at DARPA, at New Mexico Tech, at New Mexico State. We have brilliant minds here. And so I think this is the frustrating thing. We all know we have wealth from the earth. We all know we have wealth from human hands, and yet we're last in almost everything. So how do we rectify this? What are we going to do? Well, what you do is you have to do a couple of things. One is you have to do what Governor Bush did, 4 decades ago in Texas. And people forget, Texas wasn't always booming. What he did was he changed the tax code so it rewarded enterprise. It rewarded entrepreneurs. It rewarded wealth creation. And then the other thing he did, and this was key, it was tort reform. And everybody shuts it off right here. What is that? It's really just changing your legal system where you can't get sued for every little thing you do. And you're worried that the next day your business might be bankrupt because some sharp lawyer put you out of business. I mean, and so what's ended up here? We've got an economic development plan that consists of casinos, weed, and personal injury attorneys. That's basically what New Mexico has devolved to. We don't make airplanes. We don't make computers. We don't do any of the high-tech stuff that I just talked about, but that's what we should be focused on. But what are we focusing on? Oh, we're going to try to get Amazon, a distribution center. We're going to get Facebook. We're going to get Google. Freddie, those are old technologies. Google started in 1995, whereas the new stuff, what we just said, the quantum computing, all that stuff, we should be going after that. And so here's what every politician will say. I think that we should have more vocational training. Well, I do too. I'm all for the electricians, the plumbers, HVAC. We've got to do it. But I'd also like to keep the techies. I want to keep those really smart young people and get them to stay here to build their businesses, but not in the old stuff. that ship sailed. Let's do the new stuff. Let's us be the new Silicon Valley and watch this state grow. And so I know I'm rambling. I get excited about this. Let me give you an example of how you can combine high tech and low tech. Remember, low tech is wealth from the earth. What's one of the most low tech things on the planet? Water, H2O. Do you know that New Mexico has billions and billions of acre feet of brackish water? Well, okay, we all know we're having water issues. We all know that the Colorado is shrinking. We all know that we owe Texas a whole bunch of water. But how does Israel do it? They don't have much fresh water. They desalinate. And the good news is this: the technology is making huge leaps where with the new technology, the cost to desalinate is coming down rapidly. Meanwhile, the price to pump fresh water up and move it hundreds of miles, that cost is rising. Have the lines crossed yet? Not yet, but we should get ahead of this. So what should we do? Well, the big cost in desalination is energy. It takes energy to pump this stuff up and to clean the water. Have you heard of small modular nuclear reactors?
I have.
All right, good.
I haven't heard of them once, yes.
Right, all right. Small modular nuclear reactor is a nuclear reactor about the size of a McDonald's. It will power 60,000 homes. And there's no chance for meltdown. It doesn't have the great big cooling towers, the technology advanced. So what if you had a small modular nuclear reactor operating next to your desalination plant, and during the day, the nuclear reactor is providing lights, electricity, and power to the city. Meanwhile, at night, when electric use drops, it's purifying your water with all this new high-tech stuff. What if New Mexico became the water state? And I'll give you an example how this could work. San Antonio, Texas, right now has 2 of these going. One is doing 30 million gallons, maybe it's 32 million gallons a day. The other is doing 18 million gallons a day of fresh water from brackish, right? Why don't we do that? And then we were the energy state. And by the way, these small modular nuclear reactors, yes, they have nuclear waste, but we have this geologic wonder down in Carlsbad, those salt pits, where they say, look, it's the perfect place to store it. And 200 years from now, and yes, it's a long time, but it's not forever, you can go back in and get the stuff. And actually, I hope the technology will advance on that too. The point is, you've got low-tech water and you've got high-tech desalination operating with high-tech carbon-free. The environmentalists are actually coming over to the uranium side. Energy. What if the governor just focused on, we're going to do water, we're going to do energy, and we're going to do roads. And you want to know something? Communities, handle your schools. Communities, handle all of these other things that government is doing from Santa Fe now in this dictatorial manner. You guys take care of it. We'll empower you. We will help you however as we can, but we're not going to be dictating from on high. And think how this would draw New Mexicans together. This all doesn't have to be done in Albuquerque or in the Rio Grande Valley. In fact, a lot of this stuff should be done out in the rural areas. But it works. And now we start bringing New Mexicans together instead of dividing us. Now we have economic development across the state. This is the way we should be thinking. And I don't know, another reason why I'm running for governor. And sorry, I get carried away.
Oh, no, I was very interested to listen to. I was actually very invested in that. And I think my audience will be very invested in that too. And a couple more questions that I have for you is, when it comes to being the governor of New Mexico, you have the state legislature, and one of the biggest issues that many people have on their minds is election integrity.
Sure.
And as governor, what would you do to help bring trust and confidence in our elections. And how will you propose to do that when you get to that level? Will it be like a law similar to that in Texas and Georgia, or how would that play? How would that play out?
Well, first thing, we're gonna have to win, and we're gonna have to win big enough where they can't cheat. And we all know the stories in New Mexico, and we all kind of laugh about it, except it's not a laughing matter. I mean, the democracy is at stake with this thing. So should we do look backs and do the audits and say, hey, wait a minute, this has been corrupt for a long time, and should there be accountability and punishments? Yes, you know, prove it, but I believe that can be done. That's the short-term answer. The long-term answer, I believe, is blockchain. Are you familiar with the blockchain technology? This is what Bitcoin operates off of, and Ethereum, Litecoin, right? The distributed ledger, where every transaction is verified by thousands of computers all over the globe. We could do blockchain voting, and we could be the first state that does it, where you, Freddie, you have your own distinct blockchain code, just like you would with Bitcoin, you know, and this is what we should be doing. By the way, they're using blockchain just not for currencies, but to keep track of supplies moving all over the world to verify, you know, as it moves from Europe to South America, what went where and so on. It is almost impossible to break the blockchain technology with, you know, with at least what we've got now. What if we were the first state to do blockchain voting, where people felt comfortable? You could vote from your phone and it couldn't be hacked. You could vote from your computer, it won't be hacked. Why don't we do something like that and get ahead of this in that respect? Anyway, you see how I'm thinking?
Yes, yes, and that's what I think. You're probably one of the most innovative candidates I have seen in this race so far. You have a very, how do you say, unique perspective on how New Mexico should go forward. And when it comes to businesses here, as you mentioned, you don't just want businesses to come over to New Mexico, you want businesses to come from New Mexico. And Mike, and this is another question, is would you look into passing perhaps a right to work law and a grocery and, you know, eliminating the gross receipts tax?
Right.
Where'd you go on that front?
Yeah, of course. I chaired right to work here. So yeah, I mean, we have to have right to work. And by the way, I'm not against unions. In fact, I'm for unions. You should be able to voluntarily join a union, and labor should have a voice. With that said, you shouldn't be forced to join a union. That's my only objection. So you can't force union membership. But I'm a freedom guy, just know that. Meanwhile, the gross receipts tax is the single biggest impediment to us making anything. If you are going to make a product, there is no way you're coming to this state with a gross receipts tax that says, we're going to charge you for the honor of doing business in New Mexico. When other states are saying, we would be honored if you would do business in our state. We have the mentality completely reversed. Do you know that in Texas, if you're a small business guy, Freddie, they sign a concierge to you, a government concierge that says, Freddie, we're going to walk you through the system so we can get you registered properly. We're going to take you through so you can do all of the filings you need to do. We're going to explain to you how the tax structure works. We want to help you in every possible way. We're going to try to link you with people who might help build your business that would be natural allies. We don't do any of that here. We do the opposite. How can we get more money out of you? Is basically what we say. I mean, ask the oil and gas guys. This is our foundational problem. Now, can we change this? Yeah, and here's how. Freddie, we're about to go through a shift, and I'm probably pushing against time here, but we all know that this current spend thing can't go on forever. We're probably headed toward, I call it the shift, some people call it a reset, but there's going to be a foundational change. It'll be disruptive. It's okay. Americans are good at disruption. New Mexicans are particularly good at getting through disruption. But it's during that time of a shift when people are willing to embrace new ideas. We just have to be there with our arms open and saying, this is what we have to offer. Instead of big government, we're going to offer big community. Instead of contract, we're offering covenant. Instead of public sector, we're offering private sector. We want to make you wealthy. And not do the I told you so thing. It's come, join the neighbors, join the vecinos. It's us together, New Mexicans. Let's go from worst to first. Follow me. I'll work with you. I will follow you and what your great ambitions. And let's work together and let's build this state. But New Mexico united, right? So
Exactly. That is just the best way to look at things. I have two more questions I could give you. And one of the other questions is, and this is a huge one that as many people are talking about, is we briefly touched upon mandates. And one of the biggest things is not just the mask mandate, but vaccine mandates that are happening. And now you've seen with the current administration that's currently being sued, the mandate has been blocked. And they're expecting it with this Court of Appeals that it may be blocked for good and it won't go into effect. And my question to you is, when it comes to mandates like that, we are all about health and safety. We are all about making sure of that. But when it comes to this, how would you, as governor, take a step to say, yes, we believe in science, but you cannot force someone to do this? What would you be your first actions on that front?
Well, it's just what you just said. You can't do the mandates, in particular with the evidence as it's come out. I mean, Fred, remember what they told us. I mean, besides 2 weeks to flatten the curve and wear masks and we'll all be back to normal as soon as we get vaccines. And then as soon as we got the vaccines, well, you still have to wear your mask. And oh wait, the vaccine after 8 months has no efficacy whatsoever. And by the way, we have all these side effects, but don't worry about those. Those are just minor things. And what we're learning here is you should make your own decisions based on your own physician's advice. Everybody's body is different. We should stop forcing this on everyone, but then you have to take responsibility for your decision. Freddie, if I choose not to get vaccinated and I die of COVID, that's on me. Now, if you choose to get the vax, and if it does work, I mean, what's the problem? If it doesn't work and you end up with side effects, well, wait, that's on you. But we're not going to get there with mandates and forcing it down, because all they're doing is dividing us. You should have a choice based on who you are and your personal situation as to whether or not to take the vax or not. It's as simple as that.
Exactly. And that is another perfect segue to one of the biggest issues right now is education. And when it comes to critical race theory.
Right.
And we have seen states that have outright banned critical race theory and things like that. And many people obviously have a problem with critical race theory because it's teaching a very sensitive subject to not only children, but it's also teaching children that they are either victim, they are either oppressor,
Right.
and things like that. And as governor, what would you do on that front to make sure that, yes, we want our kids to be educated, yes, we want to learn about our history.
Sure.
But what would you take the action as governor to say, we can't go this far, this is unethical, and things like that?
Well, I mean, it's exactly it. The governor has control of the bureaucracy. And so these rules and regulations are being promulgated by the Public Education Department, the PED. So, I mean, clearly, I agree with you. It's all meant to divide us and to get us to see the world only through the lens of race. Well, I mean, it's what a distorted way to view the world. So with that as foundation, yes, I would be strongly against CRT. Please, everybody know that. But let's go to the philosophical part again, the structural part, maybe better said. Freddie, we didn't used to have a PED. The Public Education Department was a Governor Bill Richardson invention 20 years ago. Well, in the last 20 years, has New Mexico education improved? No. I mean, no, certainly not public education. So if you had an employee who'd done a lousy job for 20 straight years, you'd probably fire him or her. That's what we should be doing. As the governor, what could I do with PED? We could shrink it. We could declaw it. We could take away authorities. We can't get rid of it. It's in the Constitution now. But what you could do is make it, I don't know, a figurehead organization. And then what you do is you would push the power back down to local school boards and local leaders to deal with how are we going to educate our kids in our communities? What a novel idea. So that's step one. Step two is you got to follow the money. Back to financial advisors, Zanetti. Follow the money flow now in education, Freddie. It starts with politicians. And like you said, it's this huge hunk of our budget. Starts with politicians, then the money flows to bureaucrats. Then the money flows to unions. Then the money flows to administrators. Then it flows to teachers, parent, kid. We need to flip it. The money's got to go to the kid. The money follows the child. Then watch parents who are now empowered to send their children wherever they want. And parents and teachers, and we have wonderful teachers, parents and teachers are natural allies. They want to do the best for kids. Now, administration shrinks. What, unions? Who cares? Bureaucrats, politicians, they shouldn't even be in the equation. So two pieces, declaw the PED, push power down. That's step one. And step two, switch the funding. So it starts with the child. And you watch, New Mexico will rise very rapidly in education. We have smart people here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're just about running out of time here. And I do want to talk to you briefly off the record. But my final question is, why should New Mexicans vote for Greg Zanetti? And why should voters vote for you? And why should they have trust in you that you are going to bring New Mexico forward after we have been in the last on basically everything and finally perhaps become the first in everything in the future?
Because I have the skill sets to do it now. But actually, there's another reason. It's a bigger reason. Freddie, they have the skill sets. New Mexicans are an amazing people that we've put up with all this, all these decades is a testament to New Mexico's resiliency, to New Mexicans' hard work, to New Mexicans' ability to adjust and adapt in an awful environment. I mean, Freddie, what if we just change the environment and let New Mexicans loose? They will stun us with their creativity, with their entrepreneurship, with their hard work, which they already do. It's maybe the best way to put this is this. People used to say to me, General Zanetti, what was it like having all those people working for you? I said, you've got it wrong. They didn't work for me, I worked for them. My job was to get them the resources, get them the information as much as I could, and let them do wonderful work. And Freddie, they did. This is why you vote for me, because it's not going to be Zanetti leading us into the, no, it's us together leading New Mexico forward. That's the vision. And so once people grasp that, it's like, yeah, let's go. And so that's why you vote for me. I'm the candidate. What they used to call it, the uncola back in the day. See what I mean?
Yes, I see what I mean. But yeah, that's the best platform there. And thank you so much for coming onto the show with us. And it has been, you're one of the most interesting people I have talked to on this show. You're one of the most interesting, and hopefully we could get you back on the show again sometime. And I do want to mention a couple of things off the record after we're finished with this broadcast. But thank you to everyone who is watching. Thank you to everyone who is listening. And we will see you on the next episode of the Shining Light Press podcast. And thank you so much, Greg Zanetti, for coming on.
God bless you, Freddie. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome. Thank you so much.